Welcome to Trail Manners, the podcast so dedicated to mountain trails and running that they broadcast out of a 78 Volkswagen bus in the mountains. Who does that? Eric and Joel are your hosts and will bring you the trail life as you may have not heard it before. You hear about everything from gear reviews, nutrition to keep you upright and moving forward, and they'll even bring guests into the bus for conversations that you won't hear anywhere else. It's time for some running adventures on a higher elevation. The old 78 Volkswagen bus is fired up and headed to the mountains. Here are your hosts for Trail Manners, proudly representing the 801 with their passion and love for the trails. Eric Manning and Joel Hatch.
Welcome to the Trail Manners podcast, episode number 36. We're going to mix things up a little bit. So before we introduce this week's amazing guest, we got to take care of some business. That's right. It's business time. We want to encourage everybody to head on over to trailmanners.com and take a look at our gear. We got some killer shirts, some rockin' hats. We got some Boco gear visors. We have stickers. Don't be afraid. Place an order. Buy something for your friends even. We also encourage you to head on over to our Facebook page. Like us. Head on over to Twitter. Follow us. Head on over to Instagram. Follow us there. We got all kinds of stuff we're going to be launching in the next few weeks. So we want to make sure we spread the word and get the love out. So encourage your friends to follow us. Come on, people. You need to share. Don't be selfish. Share us with everybody, right? Okay, let's introduce, now that business time's over, let's introduce our guest this week. We are very happy to bring to you the Bighorn 100 winner on the female side and course record holder, Ashley Nordell from Sisters, Oregon, via Google Hangouts. And remember, the Trail Manners podcast is produced every week for your enjoyment, and show notes are found at trailmanners.com. Come back often, and please feel free to add the podcast to your favorite RSS feed or iTunes. All links are in the show notes. Now let's get after it. All right, welcome to the Trail Manners podcast. We are back via Google Hangouts, and we have an awesome guest today. We have none other than Ashley Nordell from up in Sisters, Oregon. Ashley, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So we want to start because you're kind of like the quiet in the background. You know, all these other people get a lot of hub and publicity and media attention, but you just quietly work behind the scenes and continue to kick butt. So why don't you give us a little background about yourself, and, you know, we'll just kind of take it from there.
Sure. Yeah, I guess I've been doing ultras about 13 years now, which feels kind of crazy. I started right out of college. Both my parents actually do ultras. My dad was actually at Bighorn. He did the 50K there, and I actually hated to run in high school. So it's my high school coach found me on Facebook, and I think he finds it pretty ironic. Same with my college coach. Actually, I used to complain about how far 3,000 meters was to run on the track. So they kind of make fun of me a little bit now. But yeah, I live in Sisters, which is a little town outside Bend, and teach preschool. And my husband's a special ed teacher at the high school, and we have 2 little girls. So it's kind of a little bit of a juggling act for us, but that's the way it works, I think.
So where did you go to college then and run?
I went to University of Redlands, and I actually didn't go there to run specifically. I just I actually was thinking of playing soccer and kind of wimped out over the summer and wasn't doing anything and just got bored. And one day I was out running, and the coach there saw me, and he's like, well, you're running here, you might as well run for us. And so I decided to, and actually that's when I first started loving running, maybe just a change of scenery. And so I did track, and then after that I decided I liked it, so I tried cross country. I had never done cross country in high school because it was always during soccer seasons. So running used to be a method of just staying fit for other sports, and then it's kind of evolved into something that I actually do by choice now.
A big choice. So how did you get into the ultra scene? Because that is quite a jump from where you were into the ultra scene. How did you get into that?
Yeah, well, so after college, I went back to Kruis, Oregon for a year, which is where I mostly grew up, and they have the McDonald Forest 50K there. And both my parents had run it. My dad was running it that year, and I just decided that would be something kind of fun to train for. And I jumped in probably too fast. I kind of went from 50K to 100 within that first year and had lots of injuries. And my first 50K, my dad passed me near the end and beat me by a minute. He outkicked me. He still talks about that one. That's kind of his favorite race, I think, to discuss. But yeah, you kind of swear you'll never do them again, and then you sign up for the next one, and it's sort of how it goes with hundreds these days.
So, and then when we met, you and I met, I don't know, say quite a few years ago, but it seems like it might be already.
Yeah.
Back with the Perlazumi Ultra running team.
Right.
And that was a lot of fun. That's when we first met. And I remember when you came out, we kind of flew in the first time we officially met. You were super quiet. And I can tell, and from history, that you're kind of a quiet person, right?
I am. You know what? There was in college, I got nicknamed the Mouse, which I'm kind of embarrassed that I'm saying that. But yeah, I kind of, I'm not real big on social media and just kind of, yeah, I would say I'm on the quieter side. I don't know. My family might disagree, but mostly I am. Josh might tell you something differently. He might say I need to be quieter.
Oh, I don't know, because I know he posted something on Facebook about Bighorn, which we'll jump into. And he was sure that you were going to take it down because it kind of gave you a little bit of, recognition, I guess.
Right.
Which you're a huge fan of, I'm sure.
Yeah, before I even had a chance to see it, it seemed like it already got enough views that there was kind of no point in pulling that one off his page.
So let's get into Bighorn. You've run the race a few times.
Mm-hmm.
And this year, I don't know, did everything go right? Because you took first place female, which ended up being, what, 5th overall?
Yeah, I think so.
Time was 21 hours, 38 minutes. So break it down. Did everything just go smooth according to plan? Was there some thoughts, or how did that work this year?
You know what? It's funny because maybe on paper it looks like it did, but the first 37 miles, I was absolutely miserable. I don't know what was wrong. I started out, and by mile 4, I felt terrible. I don't know if you've ever been out to Bighorn, but you climb pretty steeply, pretty quickly, and elevation and heat. And so I don't know if it was kind of that combo, but it was so rough feeling that I started to kind of panic, because you think, gosh, if it feels this bad at mile 4, what's it going to feel like, 96 miles later? And so I just kind of kept hoping it would turn around, and it took longer than I hoped. It just, even the downhills, my legs felt shaky, and I felt kind of dizzy. And luckily, there's really not a lot of places to see crew, and so really there's no one to whine to. So you kind of just keep going out there. And I kind of learned, I made some mistakes a few years ago, that I used to kind of try to push to what I thought the pace I should be running in, even if I didn't feel it. And I've kind of learned that doesn't work. And so I just kind of kept a slower pace than maybe what I would have maybe felt like I should be doing at that point. And you hit footbridge at mile 30 and you start climbing. And right after the aid station, I'd eaten and I thought I was going to be sick. I felt so bad, but my legs started to feel better. And so just little bit at a time. I think the temperatures, as they cooled off, that helped a bit. And then I was popping Rolaids like candy, and I was starting to wonder if you can OD on those things. But it seemed to help my stomach. And I had been alone all day, and I caught up with Nick Patatella, which we kind of know through Pearl. And there's something about just having company of someone else. And I caught up with another guy, John from Colorado, and so the three of us were just kind of there together for a bit, and that seemed to kind of turn it around, just having someone else to chat with. And kind of that misery loves company a little bit, kind of, and Nick had mentioned he wasn't feeling great. And so it's like, well, maybe everyone's feeling kind of rough right now. And then just the farther up I went and the colder it got, it just seemed to feel better, which, I mean, I've suffered through Bighorn. I've spent 50 miles of it throwing up, and I just had in my head, I did not want it to go like that. And so my mind frame had actually gone from not having a time goal anymore to just finishing and surviving. And so it wasn't until close to the end that I actually switched out of that mindset and thought, well, maybe I can salvage this race a little bit. And so it was shocking to me that it went as well as it did based on how bad the first start of it felt, which I guess in 100 miles, anything can kind of happen, right?
Yeah, well, and you mentioned it. You say on paper it probably looks better because on paper you're like an hour, maybe an hour and a few minutes behind the overall winner of the race. So
yeah,
to say for the first third or whatever you felt horrible, you must have, the last 60 miles or whatever it is, you must have just really found a nice groove, and either picked it up or, I mean, how did that transpire to get so quick?
Well, I think the past two times I'd run Bighorn, once I hit the turnaround and hit that downhill, my stomach has fallen apart. And so I've never been able to really run that downhill. And this year, maybe because the first part was so rough, maybe my stomach, actually, I've never had where it goes from feeling bad and improves. And in this race, it actually improved. And I ran that whole 17, 18 mile downhill kind of back and forth with Nikki, which was fabulous. I mean, I think back to when I first started ultras, and she's kind of that, it was the era of Nikki and Chrissy and Scott Jurek. And so I've known of her for years, and I've never officially met her and never had the opportunity to run with her. So, I mean, that was probably the highlight of my whole race. And I picked up a pacer at the turnaround, and just having company for a little bit just seemed to turn things around. And so, yeah, I mean, it was a different experience to be running that downhill where I'm so used to kind of stumbling along. And Josh has always paced me in the past, so he can probably vouch for how painful it normally is going down that hill, because I can still visualize him just like, get up off the trail, get up. Because I wanted to.
Now, did Josh pace you this year?
No, he couldn't come out. Our school year goes later. So a buddy of mine from Montana came out, and he paced me all the way down to Footbridge, and he was going to pace me to the finish. And then leaving Footbridge, you climb pretty steep for a few miles, and he started to actually not feel very good. I think it's hard as a pacer. Like, you travel the whole day out there to the day before, and you spend your whole day waiting on your runner, and you think about your runner, and you don't always probably take care of yourself as much. And so actually he turned around and went back to Footbridge, and I finished it solo, which was a whole different experience, but it ended up being totally fine. And I kind of turned my mind where I start worrying about him, and I felt bad that he had come all the way out and he wasn't feeling good. But it was a great experience having him going down from Footbridge. And I ended up kind of meeting up with another guy out there who had a pacer, and we were kind of back and forth for a little bit. And so that kind of passed the time and some of those night hours, because as you know, Bighorn's kind of remote and known for some animals. So as soon as my pacer was gone, I started kind of looking around for the eyes in the dark a bit.
So at what point in this race did you realize kind of where you were at? Because, I mean, you PR'd this by a couple hours yourself on your own time. Maybe, and I'm not saying you did, but maybe in the back of your mind, you knew what the course record was. You probably knew because of the course you were kind of the first female. At what point did you realize, holy cow, I got a chance for this?
Not until literally like the very end. Your mind's tired and you try doing math in your head. And my goal going into it, I thought if everything went fabulous, maybe I could run under 23 hours. Like, I'm picturing 22, 59, 59 kind of. And I almost felt embarrassed telling anyone that, because I thought that maybe was too far of a reach. I mean, Darcy, I think, is the only one who'd ever gone under 23 hours. And so I was kind of embarrassed to say I wanted to even do that. But so I know when I hit Dry Fork at the end, which is about 17 or 18 to the end, I started calculating. I still just had that 23 in my mind. And like I said before that, for a while, it had really just been, let's finish this and not fall apart. And so then I start kind of calculating, but it really was not until I hit kind of that gravel road at the end with 5 to go that it's like, oh, wow, and maybe unless I'm walking it in, I can do better than I was picturing. And I kind of got, my stomach finally gave in about mile 85, and so I did panic for a minute that it was all going to fall apart. But I've always had stomach issues, and I ended up not eating anything that last 18 just because I couldn't. But luckily it hung on there, and I made it before totally busting.
So is there anything like through this race? I mean, again, your time was incredible. You've done it in the past. Everybody looks back on a race and says, oh, I could have done this, or was there any part of that race where you think to yourself, that wasn't a good section, I could have changed this or changed that or ran here? Or is it just kind of, it is what it is?
You know, maybe if that first beginning would have felt better, but maybe it was sort of a blessing that I didn't feel great because I ended up probably running a little bit more cautiously. But I think once things started to turn around with my stomach, I think it went way better than I was even hoping for. I have a whole new appreciation for hundreds and keeping your stomach together because, like I said, that's kind of my big downfall. And you can enjoy the race a lot more when you're able to kind of eat a little bit and not just feeling sick for 50 some miles. And so, yeah, I feel like if anything, I would have liked the beginning to feel better just so I could have enjoyed it more because it's kind of hard to enjoy it when that early on you're not feeling great because you're just kind of panicking about what the day is going to bring. And, I knew I wanted to finish it no matter what because like I said, I had a pacer that drove all the way out there. And this is the first year I've actually ever used a coach. I'm using Ty Draney this year. I know you know Ty. And
dog
so
took our next segment.
Yeah. I mean, since January, he's been working with me. And so I don't want to, this was sort of our race we were working for. And I would have, I wanted to make sure at least I finished it since he put some time into helping me get, to that point and stuff. So all those things kind of, force you to just keep working on getting yourself together. And like I said, luckily, finally it turned around for me.
So I think you just did a nice segue for what our next questions were going to be. Have you had a coach?
Well, hey. Yeah, I have never had a coach before this. So all those other years, I didn't. And just this year, I kind of thought I've been doing it for so long, and I feel like I've kind of just reached maybe a plateau a little bit. And I approached him, and I still wasn't sure I wanted to do a coach, but part of why I chose Ty on top of just, I knew him a little bit and I just think he's an awesome person. And I know that I could work with someone like him, but also he is, he teaches and he has kids and I feel like he would understand that balance that I need to have, and that it would be important to him as much as it is to me. And so part of why I reached out is just the fact that I know that he balances things and has to figure it out, and that he would kind of help me work with that. Because I was kind of worried I would get a schedule and then things just come up, with life, and then I wouldn't be able to keep it up. And he made for me something that his schedule wasn't all that different than what I already do, but it was, he put some more quality stuff in. And in a way, he kept me from doing too much, which is great because, sometimes you have time and you feel like you've got to use that time because you actually have it. Whereas now I had a schedule and I, for the most part, listened to what he said and really really appreciate everything that he helped me do this year.
Well, she answered all of our questions we had.
So what was the biggest difference though with being coached by Ty and the way you've done things the past 12, 13 years? What was kind of the biggest difference in the challenges and the adjustments you had to make?
I think the biggest difference is that he had me doing like one or two quality workouts every week. And, in the past, I maybe would try to throw in some speed and kind of, unless someone's telling me to do it, that's the first thing to go. Because I think why I like hundreds is you can go slower and be out longer. But he would have me doing, one or two quality workouts, whether it's not always on the track, but even on the trails or on the roads. And especially in January and February, our roads were icy here. The weather wasn't great. And there would be times where I wouldn't get out to run until after dark and it's slippery. And I would kind of want to just not do it. But then I'm like, well, Ty's going to check. And so I should do it because, he said to do it. And so that would help me on those days where you just don't feel it, or he might have me doing a second run and I just ate burritos for dinner. And in my mind, that sounds terrible, but I know he's going to look it up. So I'm going to do it. So it got me out the door on days that maybe I wouldn't. And I wouldn't say I necessarily needed extra incentive to run, because sometimes my run during the day is kind of my only maybe kid-free hour or so. And it's kind of my nice escape. So I love getting out of the house and doing it, but he definitely, having his schedule, made me do more things of quality than maybe I would have done in the past.
Yeah, because Ty, I mean, he's been on the show a couple times, and we've had people on the show that have been coached by Ty. So Ty, it's interesting you bring him up because he's actually, I think, the show's #1 fan. I know he's got some ideas of a possible tattoo for himself with our logo. He's just
there you go. We'll see. I'm giving him some shout outs then here.
Yeah, so it'll be nice for Ty to have his name brought up again. So, and you bring up an interesting point because we do talk to a lot of people, and ultra running's growing, trail running's growing. People are getting into it. So, being a mom, I mean, you're married with some kids. Kind of, how do you balance that? Because that is tough. I mean, Joel and I have children. How do you balance that where you're at with Josh working and, so he can get his time in what he does?
Right. That's a fabulous question. And, some days we do a better job than others with it. One thing, you asked about with Ty too, one thing that was nice is he would give me, a month at a time. And so if I knew that I had kind of a bigger week, it gave me a chance to kind of chat with Josh ahead of time and just say, these are things I need to get in this week. What days do you think we can do it? Because one thing that was nice about his schedule is he would give me what to do each day, but I could kind of flip things around. And so if he had me doing something on Tuesday, but Josh had a meeting or I had to do some extra work, then I could kind of move it around. And so, I would say communication is really important. It's not that we always do a good job with it. I think Josh would agree with me. Sometimes we totally flounder it, but he works out in the morning before going to work. And so he always gets that one in. And then I usually do when he gets home. During things like cross country season, he also coaches. And so that ends up being more my off season or downtime because he doesn't get home till maybe 5:30 or 6. And if I just bust out the house then it's like there's no family time at all. And so it's sort of a juggling act. Luckily I'm only working part-time, so I'm at home with the girls, and I teach preschool, and actually my older daughter's in my class, so I really see her like all day long. Sometimes we're probably both ready for me to get out of the house. And so I'm home from work between 12:30 and 1. And last year I would actually do a lot of my weekday runs pushing both girls in the stroller, which was great because it gave me some of those runs. And this year they're heavier, and my younger one half the time screams in the stroller, and so it's not really relaxing or much of a run. I end up kind of slinking home and hoping no neighbors hear and think I'm torturing her out there. So yeah, one thing is my parents live about 2.5 hours away, and my dad has come over a lot this year to help with just childcare during the week when I'm working and stuff. And so having the help of my parents and Josh's family, even though they're in Minnesota, his mom came over a few times, like when I had to travel for a race. And so we had a lot of help from family, which otherwise, I really wouldn't be able to do it if I didn't have that family help.
Speaking of family help, I think someone's scooting around in the background there. Is that your mom?
My mom, yeah. So she's watching the girls right now so that they don't come up here. But yeah, my dad was he was with me at Bighorn, and then he and his buddy were kind of traveling and running, and then my mom came over for a few days. Josh is coaching a cross country camp all week, and so she wanted to, she came and helped for a few days. And so I'm really, really lucky in that I have a lot of people who are jumping in. And I think it's kind of nice both ways because, my parents and Josh's parents, they get to spend time with the kids, and then the kids are spending time with people who I want them to be spending time with too. And so it takes a little of the guilt factor away because I know they're getting quality time with grandparents, and grandparents get quality time with the kids. And so we're fortunate to be able to make that work for sure.
Now, is your dad there right now?
He's not. He drove home. They had 2 cars up because my dad he just came back from Colorado. He actually, maybe I saw, he did Bighorn 50K, and then he did the San Juan Solstice the next weekend. So my dad's kind of wild.
Yeah. So we need to hear the story from your dad about how he outkicked you. So we need to maybe get him on afterwards.
Yeah.
I want to hear his version.
I have to tell you the story about my dad. So he did the Bighorn, he did the 50K, and it starts up the next day at Dry Fork. And it starts at 8 a.m. So I'd already been through, I think I came through Dry Fork around 5 a.m. So he gets to the start of his race and he asks them how I'm doing, and miscommunication. I don't know. Whoever he asked looked me up on the computer, and it mistakenly showed me still 20 miles back. So my dad thinks that I'm, throwing up at an aid station because he knows how this goes sometimes, and just that I've dropped or that I'm miserable. And so his whole 50K out there, he's just thinking that I'm out there, still out there, and he can't really enjoy it because he feels so worried. And he comes into the finish finally, and I run up and asked him how it was, and he's like, "Oh, my day was pretty miserable, like yours was too, huh?" I was like, "Well, it wasn't that bad, Dad." I kind of felt bad. It kind of ruined his race a little bit, I think.
Oh, that's too bad.
That's a whole team effort, though, you've got going on with Josh and grandparents and kids and everything else. That's great to hear.
For sure, it is. It's like I say, it takes a whole village, and and when I went to Arkansas back in March, Josh's mom came out and visited for a few days, and she helped with the kids, and so it makes it easier leaving, knowing that they're in good hands and that I should just relax.
Since you brought it up, I want to ask you. So, where you went to Arkansas, you've gone back for this event how many times now?
Goodness, I think this was year 7. I would have to do some counting. I've actually gone back to this race more than any other race, which is funny because it's the farthest away I've traveled for a race. But it has a special, just the people there. Back in, I think it was maybe 2007, I kind of went on a whim. I was running for Montreal that year, and Steve, the race director, was too, and he gave out some free Montreal, I think, entries. And I didn't have kids. It was like, maybe I'll go to Arkansas and see a new place and do a race, and went out there and loved it. And I've gone back. Both girls have actually been there. It's sort of the same people come year after year, and it's awesome. It's a great race. It's called 3 Days of Silamo. It's a 3-day stage race up in the Ozarks.
So, and you've won that race quite a few times as well, right?
All of them actually. Yeah.
I don't mean to brag.
I'm sure I should probably just stop now and keep a good record, but.
So you mentioned, that keeps you going back to that race, because that's a little bit different than, say, even Bighorn or, a Western or, Angeles Crest or any of those. That's far away. It's a little bit off the radar, and it's not a big race that people have heard of. So
yeah, it's more than a race. I don't really think a lot of people go out with the mindset to race it. And then I kind of don't. It's more, for me, it kind of kicks off the season, but it's more about just the event than it being an actual race. It's a race, but you know what I mean? It's people are there to hang out and run all the trails and hang out afterward. And Steve doesn't market super well. We all get lost, and that's just part of it. And it's like it's more of like a big reunion of all these fun people who live in Arkansas and surrounding areas and stuff.
So it seems like it's like an old school ultra kind of local fun race, like a El Vaquero or something like that.
Yes, yeah, and you get some hilarious, fabulous people out there, and yeah, it is. It's totally old school, and the ultras have changed a lot, and they're a lot bigger now and stuff. And this one's grown, but the dynamic of the race hasn't grown. It's still kind of back to its roots that it's been since the very beginning, and I like that about it. I kind of think I don't do a ton of the big scale races. I think I kind of like the old school events a little bit more.
So explain it. So it's a 3-day race. So explain day 1, day 2, day 3 mileage wise, so people have an idea of that.
Yeah. So day 1 is a 50K. Day 2 is a 50 miler, and day 3, I think he says it's a 20K. It's usually about 14. But he changes the courses every year, and so it's never the same. You run a lot of the same trails, but there's never been where all 3 days are the exact same days. And so it's kind of nice. You don't know if you're getting faster or slower. And so if your time's slower, you can just tell yourself the course was harder that year or something. And and you always think that last day people will just be hobbling, and all of a sudden everyone has like this new wave of energy, and the last day feels like it goes out on this sprint. And it's really pretty. It's up in these Ozarks, kind of near Mountain View, Arkansas, and it's all single track trail, and you're not repeating each day very much unless it's just to get out to certain trails. They have endless trails out there. It's a great area to go and see and to run on for sure.
So comparable wise on the difficulty of the course, is there like elevation change? Is it more flat? Is it runnable trails? I mean, what's the course itself like?
It's pretty rocky, although I'm saying that being a Pacific Northwesterner, people from, maybe the East Coast would laugh when I say it's rocky, but it gains a lot, but it doesn't gain a lot at once. It's not like out here where we have just these long climbs. It's kind of all rolling up and down the whole time. So they have, I think they call them hollows, and they kind of, you run into these hollows and then you run back up. And so their mountains aren't tall, but they're, I guess I would say, hilly. And like I said, the footing, some of their trails are really well maintained. And then, this year we went on the Ozark Highland Trail a bit, and I guess that's maintained in certain areas where there's lots of foot traffic. And then there's some places where it's not maintained at all. And you're just, you're kind of looking for ribbons and following ribbons versus an actual trail. And you're, going through brambles. There was parts of it that make me feel like a tiny piece of what some of the Barkley would be like. And I mean, tiny, like I'm not comparing it to Barkley, but there was one place he sent us down that was maybe a trail like 20 years ago. And now it's like a deer path that we were running on. So every once in a while, you're kind of bushwhacking and just looking for those ribbons and stuff too.
So what kind of event size-wise is this? I mean, is it something you have to run all 3 days? Can you show up and just run like the 50K?
Yeah, you can just do one of the days, 2 of the days. It's any of it. My dad actually came out and did it this year, and he did all 3 days. But one year he came and he just did one of the days. Josh has come out before and done all days. He's done just some of them too. So yeah, I think they have a kind of a core group that always does all 3 days. And then I think people who are local and can get over for maybe just one day do that. Or there's a whole bunch of people who come from surrounding states that travel as a group. So maybe if someone's not ready for all 3 days, they might jump in and do, a lot of people do the first and last day and skip the 50-miler day sometimes too.
It's a good idea, it sounds like to me.
Yeah. I think that sometimes too on the start of the second day. Be a spectator of all that day.
Yeah, and you've had a pretty good year this year with some of the is there anything else you have coming up this year that you're racing or running or adventures, or what do you have going the rest of the year?
Well, it's funny you should ask, because I'm debating. I've kind of planned on doing the I Am Tough 100 in Idaho. Like, it's been on my radar. And one of my best friends, Darla Askew, she lives in Bend. I'm actually going to go pace her at Hard Rock in a couple of weeks. But she and I kind of talked about it, and she bit the bullet one day and signed up, and I keep waiting. And during Bighorn, I swore up and down that I am not doing this 100. Like, I'm done with hundreds for the year, and I'm just done. And even after the race, and I told Josh, he's like, no, you'll change your mind. I'm like, no, I'm not doing it. I've done mountain race. I'm done for the year. And now we'll see. Now I'm starting to reconsider it a little bit. And you know how that goes. You give yourself a week or two, and then I watch Western and get all inspired. And now I'm thinking I might go for it again. So,
especially when you head over to Hard Rock and get a taste of, just being back into that scene a little bit, I think. And Joel here, yeah, Joel's that's his race for the year, the I'm Tough.
Yeah. So I'll be there.
Oh, you're going to do that one. Awesome. Yeah. I've been looking up some pictures, and it looks beautiful.
It does. That course record over there is a little bit soft for the female. So I think you can go over there and definitely snatch that. Oh,
we'll see. Just the thought of running again that far in the mountains sounds still a little brutal, but like I said, it's been a little bit of enough time that I can start thinking about it without swearing up and down I'm done for the year.
I went out a couple years ago and paced that and crewed that course for a friend of mine. It's beautiful.
Well, you guys are going to sell me on it, aren't you?
You don't want to miss it. It's so pretty.
Excuse me. Yeah, the pictures are spectacular. And yeah, I don't race a ton during the year. And so I kind of like to pick one main one, and I made it Bighorn, and then I kind of designate the other races as just training for that. And then once that's over, I can kind of look at maybe one more. And so, yeah, if I do that one, that'll probably be the last one of the year. Or, I might, if I do something kind of local or a 50K or something, but it's I made the mistake a few years ago of trying to do too much in one year, and I kind of paid for it kind of the next year. So I'm hopefully I'm getting smarter, or at least hoping to.
Sounds like what about your bucket list? You say you're not maybe a big fan of the big races, maybe stuff. What's your, I don't know, bucket list race or adventure runs that you would still like to do before you decide not to do this stuff anymore?
Oh goodness. I kind of like to pick races that are really scenic. So things that where I'm captivated by the scenery, and I have the Superior 100 is on my bucket list. Just I'd love to see that area. Cascade Crest and the Bear. Hard Rock, I have yet to even make the wait list, but I'll keep trying on that one. I have actually Arkansas Traveler is on my one-day list, which it was probably the exact opposite of like the kind of 100 that I feel like would be my strength. But just because a lot of the same people come from 3 days and do that one, and it's one of the classics that I'd like to just go out and try it one year. And so yeah, there's plenty on my list of what I'd like to see. I haven't ever raced East Coast, and so that would be fun to try something over there sometime. Massanutton's always been on my mind, but the timing, May is hard. It's hard for me to be ready by 100 in May with just the school year and stuff. So we'll see. But one day I'd like to experience that one too. And I love, the adventure runs for me. I love like the Wonderland Trail. We have a lot of trails around here where you can go around mountains. You can run around the Three Sisters. You can run around Mount Hood, and there's lots with just where you can go single track all the way around these mountains. And so I love doing that in the summertime too. So I'm sure I'll knock some of those off this summer as well.
So you've done Angeles Crest 100 a few times as well, right?
Yeah.
And you've won that one. How many times? 2, 3, a couple times?
Yeah. I think so. I think last year was my fourth finish there. So I think I won it twice, 2 of those times. We used to live in Mount Baldy, and so the AC course was kind of our backyard. So it kind of holds a special spot just because of the location and the trails and everything there. So when I lived down there, I used to do that one just because it was literally right there for us.
Now, what have you seen, or what do you think about how they're having to change that course now? Have you seen that? Have you seen the info there?
I have, yeah. Well, knowing the course and picturing what they would have to do would definitely be, it would be sad for that course, because it's that's all PCT trail right there, or a lot of it is on the PCT, and it sounds like the reroute would have to go to Highway 2, which they already have problems with the traffic on that highway, and I don't know how that would go having runners on it. It's a pretty windy, narrow highway. So yeah, hopefully they can figure something out for that, because it would definitely be sad to see that race. It's just another one of those that's been around for so long, and has those traditions that hopefully they can resolve it and figure out a way to be able to get back on the trail there, because it would definitely change the dynamic of the race, and you would lose a lot of that both the scenery, and if you take Cooper Canyon out of AC, you're kind of taking one of the major challenges out, because everyone dies in Cooper Canyon, and so it would change the dynamic right there too.
It's probably one of those things in a race where you kind of like, oh man, that's a tough section, I don't mind, but then you kind of lose a little bit too, thinking, but that's what makes that course the course.
Exactly. It wouldn't be AC without Cooper Canyon. I mean, you want to be at that Cloudburst aid station and watch people coming out of Cooper Canyon, and just for entertainment right there. So yeah, it would be unfortunate if they had to switch to those roads. I mean, anytime you lose single track to pavement, you're obviously losing some of the scenery and kind of value of that course a little bit.
Because I know they did similar, not the same idea, but at the Wasatch 100, they had Herb's Torture Chamber, the plunge and dive, just some very iconic section. The last 20 miles, there's pieces of that people dreaded. It was just brutal on you that late. They ended up taking it out for trail purposes, And there were people like, oh man, that's good. But then you think about it and you miss it. I ran it
Right.
with that, and I ran it without that. And I'm like, as hard as that was, it was still part of what made Wasatch Wasatch.
Right. Now, did they put that back in now? Is that the part they've put at the end? Oh, good.
Yeah, so they did, but I just know that it kind of took away from the luster a little bit, even though it wasn't as hard for sure, but it was
right. Yeah, I've never done Wasatch, but it's on my bucket list as well.
Okay, well, you need to come out because you said the Bear, you said Wasatch. That's right here in our backyard, and neither one of those you'd be disappointed by.
I know, yeah. So I kind of considered Wasatch this year, thinking, Bighorn and Wasatch, and I think it was some timing a little bit. First day of kindergarten and Wasatch this year were kind of same week or something, but maybe next year I can go on that bucket list.
So do you have anything lined up for next year already? Like things that you just are gonna, hey, I'm doing this race?
Nothing. No, I'm kind of get through this year, and then, like I said, I like to kind of pick one that really sparks my interest and motivates me, and then I kind of base the other races a little bit around it. And that Georgia death race kind of appeals to me a little bit. But it's right around 3 days of Silamo, so I'd have to kind of pick and choose. But like I said, if it's scenic and something like that kind of gets me going for it a little bit.
Gotcha. Well, hey, Ash, I really want to thank you for taking the time to talk with us today. It's a pleasure. It's great to catch up again. It's been a long time. But in the shadows, I've been keeping an eye on you, seeing how well you're doing, because you and Josh are just such great people. I had a pleasure to meet years ago. So thank you so much.
I miss not getting to see you each year out in Boulder anymore.
That was a lot of fun. We had a good group of people. That was a lot of fun.
We did, for sure. Yeah. Well, thank you. Thanks for having me on. It was a pleasure to talk to you guys.
Yeah. Well, tell Josh thanks. Tell both sets of grandparents thank you.
I owe them a lot. I owe them a lot for sure.
That's right. Well, thanks again. We hope to catch up to you later, and good luck, and hope to Joel see it on Tough this year, maybe.
Yeah, you've got it more in my mind. So I'll probably be blaming you out there at mile 50 or so if
Don't be surprised if you get a text or an email nudging you just a little bit between now and then.
All right, sounds good.
All right, thank you, Ashley.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to the Trail Manners Podcast. We'd like to thank Ashley Nordell for taking the time to join us today via Google Hangouts. And we would also love to congratulate her on her win at the Bighorn 100 and new course record. As we mentioned earlier, we sure would like to encourage everybody to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Trail Manners, or go ahead and swing by the website at trailmanners.com and support us with some cool gear there. You can also hit us over on the contact page. Let us know what you want to see, who you want to hear, or even if you would like to be on our show. So until next time, this is Eric Manning with Joel Hatch reminding you, you don't get what you wish for, you get what you work for. Now go get it.